The first roar came with the storm. Kalden Merrick froze, heart pounding as a flash of lightning split the sky. Rain lashed his worn coat and the mud beneath his boots threatened to swallow him with every step. He had been checking the wheat fields, routine work before the storm worsened. But routine had ended the moment that roar shook the air. Something screamed in pain. Something small. Something alive. Without thinking, Kalden ran toward the sound, sliding through mud and water, dodging fallen branches. His mind raced with possibilities, wolves, a trapped calf, but the fear he felt didn't belong to any ordinary animal. It was sharper, more urgent. When he reached the edge of the broken fence, he saw them. 2 tiny dragons, their scales slick with rain, wings crumpled like torn sails. Blood mixed with mud on their delicate limbs. One whimpered, a sound so raw it made Kalden's chest tighten. The other trembled violently, eyes wide with confusion and terror. "By the gods," he whispered, kneeling beside them. One hissed weakly, but it was more fear than threat. Kalden's hands trembled, but he forced himself steady. He had no choice. The creatures were helpless. If he hesitated, they would die. He scooped the smaller one into his arms first. Its claws scraped his coat, but he gritted his teeth and held firm. The second he lifted carefully with a blanket from his cart, wrapping it around the injured wings to stop further damage. Both dragons shivered violently, but neither tried to bite. They seemed to sense he was not an enemy. Lightning cracked again and a shadow moved in the distance. Something enormous, moving fast, silent except for the sound of its wings cutting through the wind. Kalden froze, eyes wide. Was it another dragon? One of those massive ancient beasts the old story spoke of? Or something else entirely? He couldn't tell. "Stay calm," he muttered to the creatures, more for himself than them. His hands shook as he started toward the barn, the path slick and treacherous. The rain pounded harder and the mud pulled at his boots. Every step was a fight against nature itself. Every second counted. The smaller dragon's glowing eyes met his. A faint, pulsing light from its scales flared and dimmed with each breath. Kalden blinked. He had never seen anything like it. Fire? No, not fire. Something softer, almost alive in a new way. The glow spread over the edges of its tiny wings, revealing delicate patterns, almost like maps drawn in silver. "What are you?" he whispered. But there was no answer, only the soft tremble of fear. A sudden gust of wind ripped through the field, flinging a branch toward them. Kalden reacted instinctively, twisting and letting it hit his shoulder instead of the dragon's. Pain seared, but he didn't drop them. The smaller dragon chirped in alarm but stayed nestled against him. The other, wrapped in the blanket, stared at him with wide, wary eyes. The barn was still 100 yards away, its doors barely visible through the sheets of rain. Kalden's arms ached, muscles burning from holding the creatures. Every puddle threatened to trip him. Every flash of lightning made the shadow from earlier clearer. A massive dragon, its wings stretching wider than any tree. Its eyes glowed faintly, watching him, unblinking. Kalden froze for a heartbeat. Then it roared. Not at him. Not angrily. It was a low, mournful sound, like grief and rage combined. The ground trembled. The smaller dragon in his arms whined back, wings fluttering weakly. Kalden realized the shadow was their mother. Her eyes tracked his every movement, her presence a warning and a test all at once. He swallowed fear and pressed on. "Almost there," he whispered. "Just a little further." Mud swallowed his boots, water ran into his sleeves and the rain stung his face. Each step was agony. Each movement risked dropping the hatchlings. But surrender was not an option. Not for them. Not now. A sudden crack echoed as a nearby tree split under the storm's fury. Kalden stumbled, the hatchling slipping slightly in his arms. Reflexively, he grabbed the smaller one closer, wrapping his coat tighter around it. The second he steadied with his free arm, heart hammering, the mother dragon's roar rose again, long, deep, impossible. It shook the air, rattled the barn doors. The hatchlings froze, trembling. Kalden felt their fear, but also a strange trust. They had chosen him, or maybe he had chosen them. Either way, there was no turning back. Just as his boots hit the muddy path to the barn doors, a flash of lightning illuminated a new, terrible sight. A figure moved in the corner of the field, a predator drawn by the cries, bigger than any wolf, faster than any human could outrun. Its eyes glinted in the storm, fixed on the hatchlings. Kalden's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his hands would not let go. He braced, planting his feet, ready to fight, to protect, to do whatever it took. The storm raged around them, but inside his arms, the dragon's fragile lives pulsed in perfect, impossible rhythm with his own heartbeat. He had no weapons, no reinforcements, nothing but courage, a stubborn will, and the certainty that failure was not an option. And in that moment, as the predator lunged from the mud, the mother dragon's wings unfurled in the distance. She roared, not in anger but in warning. The sound cut through the storm, splitting the night and freezing the air. Calden looked up and realized the fight for survival was no longer just his. It had become something bigger. Something he didn't yet understand. Calden barely had time to catch his breath before the predator skidded into the open, mud splattering with each step. Its eyes were sharp, cold, and unrelenting. A huge wolf-like creature, though bigger than anything Calden had ever seen, muscles rippling under coarse fur, fangs glinting in the storm's flashes. It froze a few yards away, calculating, and then surged forward like a living missile. Calden stumbled backward, holding the smaller dragon tighter. The second, wrapped in the wet blanket, squirmed but did not panic. Somehow it trusted him. Somehow he had to trust himself. His mind raced. There was no time to grab a tool, no time to think beyond one thing: survival. The mother dragon hovered above, wings beating against the wind. Each stroke sent waves of air that buffeted Calden, nearly toppling him. Her eyes, glowing faintly like molten silver, were fixed on the predator. Then, in a sudden twist, she dived, not at Calden, not at the hatchlings, but straight at the predator. A massive claw struck, sending it sprawling into the mud, yelping. Calden gasped. That was his opening. "Go!" he shouted, sprinting toward the barn with every ounce of strength left in his aching legs. Mud sucked at his boots and lightning illuminated the chaos. Branches crashing, rain blinding, the predator recovering. Calden's arms ached with the weight of the hatchlings, but he pushed forward. Step after step he refused to falter. Halfway to the barn, the smaller dragon's glow flickered violently. Calden paused, fear twisting his stomach. Its tiny body shook, wings quivering. Rain streamed down its face, mixing with mud, but he held it close, murmuring words he didn't even fully understand. "You're safe. Almost there. I won't let anything happen to you." Something extraordinary happened. The glow intensified, pulsing in sync with the creature's heartbeat, and sparks of light shot like tiny fireflies into the rain. Calden felt it, warmth, energy, and something almost alive pushing against him. The predator yelped again, this time backing off slightly as if repelled by the radiance. He didn't wait to understand. He ran the last few yards, sliding through the mud, and slammed the barn door open. Inside it was dark but dry. Straw covered the floor, and he quickly laid the hatchlings down gently. Their wings twitched as if testing themselves, while their eyes darted around nervously. Calden sank to his knees, soaked and exhausted but alive. His chest heaved. For a moment he thought he could finally breathe, but the storm wasn't finished and neither was the danger. The barn shook as wind tore at its wooden walls. The rain had pooled outside, forming small streams that now threatened to flood in. Every second counted. He looked at the dragons. The smaller one, glowing softly, met his gaze. He saw intelligence there, a spark of awareness far beyond what he'd imagined. The other, slightly larger and more wary, raised a shaky claw as if reaching for him. Calden swallowed hard. He wasn't just a farmer. Not anymore. He was a protector. A bridge between species that didn't understand humans, and humans that barely understood themselves. Then he heard it, a strange clicking sound, soft but deliberate. Something was moving in the shadows of the barn. Calden tensed, heart hammering. Not the predator, not the mother dragon. Something else. Smaller, quick, skittish. A faint trail of glowing dust flickered on the floor. He knelt and followed it, holding the hatchlings close. It led him to a corner where the mud-streaked floor met a pile of old crates. There, half-hidden, was an egg. Not ordinary. It was cracked, a faint light leaking through jagged openings. The shell was marked with strange symbols, not like anything he'd seen. Lines, circles, almost like a language made of light. Calden froze. He didn't understand, but instinct told him this egg was important. Whoever, or whatever, had left it here had a reason. And it might be connected to the hatchlings in his care. He brushed the mud away gently, careful not to touch the glowing lines. The egg pulsed softly as if breathing. A strange hum filled the barn, low but resonant, vibrating through his chest. A sudden gust blew through the open doors, rattling everything. The mother dragon's wings flapped outside, a shadow cutting across the lightning-lit sky. She roared, a deep, mournful sound that seemed to say both warning and hope. The hatchlings responded, whimpering in unison, their glow synchronizing with the egg's faint light. Calden realized then that the creatures were connected in ways he didn't yet understand. He pressed the hatchlings closer to him, eyes darting to the barn entrance. The predator was gone for now, but he knew it could return. And then there was something else, the hum from the egg. Something was awakening just barely in the corner of the barn. Calden's mind spun. Every decision now carried weight. One misstep and the hatchlings could die. One wrong move and the predator, or worse, could find them. Yet he felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Courage. The strange creatures in his arms and the mysterious egg were giving him a reason to fight harder than he ever had in his life. He had a choice: stay and protect what he had or risk everything to understand the mystery unfolding before him. He gritted his teeth, determination hardening in his chest. He would do both. He had to. Outside, the storm raged, wind tearing through the fields, lightning striking closer. And above it all, the mother dragon circled, watching, waiting. Calden's heartbeat synced with the glowing pulse of the hatchlings and the strange egg. Every instinct told him danger was not over, and yet something told him this was the beginning of something far bigger than he could imagine. Then a sharp crack echoed from the roof. A beam splintered and crashed to the floor. Dust filled the air and the barn shook violently. The hatchlings squeaked, wings flailing. Calden spun toward the noise, heart racing. And in that moment he saw it, a shadow moving inside the barn that shouldn't have been there. Something large. Something fast. Something alive. Calden froze, the hatchlings trembling in his arms. The shadow had moved again. Faster this time. Closer. He could see the outline now, a large shape with wings folded tight, muscles coiled like a spring ready to strike. Yet there was no aggression, not yet. Just watchfulness. He swallowed hard, feeling the weight of every second. One wrong move and he could lose everything. Yet the farmer in him, the part used to facing storms and stubborn animals, took control. He squared his shoulders and spoke softly, almost a whisper. "It's okay. I'm not your enemy." The shadow shifted again, revealing itself fully. The mother dragon had entered the barn. Her eyes glowed like molten silver, immense and unblinking. The wingspan was enormous, casting the hatchlings and Calden into sudden darkness except for the small glow of the injured dragons. The mother's gaze scanned him, then the hatchlings, and finally rested on the glowing egg in the corner. Calden's chest tightened. He had never been this close to a creature so massive, so powerful. One step wrong, one breath too loud, and it could crush him without effort. And yet, he didn't run. He couldn't. Somehow, in her presence, a strange trust had begun to form. Then came the twist he hadn't expected. The mother dragon lowered her head, and from deep within her throat came a sound. Not a roar, not a growl, but a vibration almost musical. The hatchlings responded immediately. Their glow pulsed faster, wings twitching. Even the egg's soft light intensified, flickering like it recognized the signal. Calden stared. The dragons weren't just alive. They were communicating. In a language he didn't understand, but one he could feel. The patterns of light, the soft hum, the tiny movements, they were all connected. And in that moment, a thought hit him. These creatures are far more intelligent than anyone could have imagined. They are organized, maybe even sentient. He knelt slowly, careful not to move too quickly. "I don't know what you're saying," he whispered, "but I'll help. I swear it." The mother dragon's head tilted slightly. It was not a nod, not exactly, but it was acknowledgement. Something like approval. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the stormy fields. And in that brief moment, Calden saw movement at the barn doors. Shapes larger than wolves, faster than any predator he knew. Others were coming. He didn't recognize them at first, then realization struck. More dragons. Not injured hatchlings, not the mother here, but larger dragons, exiles, maybe, or remnants of a hidden colony. Their wings cut through the rain like knives, eyes glowing with suspicion and fury. Calden's heart jumped. He had thought the mother was the only threat or ally. Now he was surrounded by something entirely unknown. His instincts screamed, "Get out, hide, protect the hatchlings." Yet his mind raced. He couldn't run. If these dragons saw the hatchlings as prey, or worse, danger, they would strike. Then another shock. One of the exiles landed near the barn, but instead of attacking, it hissed a warning at the others. A command. The storm around them almost seemed to bend to their presence. The mother turned, then back at Calden, wings lowering, almost inviting him to act. Somehow they trusted him, not fully but enough to let him influence what happened next. He knew what he had to do. There was no time to plan fully. He took the blanket off the larger hatchling, using it to create a barrier between himself and the approaching dragons. Then he moved slowly forward, holding the smaller one close. "Look at me," he said firmly. "You're safe. All of you." The mother dragon's hum intensified. The hatchlings responded in kind. Their glow brightened, now pulsing in unison like a heartbeat. It was subtle but enough to draw the attention of the other dragons. They hesitated, watching the glowing pulse, listening to the strange rhythm. Kalden realized that the light, and perhaps the bond he had formed, was communicating something universal, calming, non-threatening. Sweat and rain streaked his face. His arms burned from holding the dragons, but he forced himself forward. One step at a time, slow, deliberate, careful not to provoke. Each movement was a gamble, but every second that passed without attack strengthened the bond. Every blink of the glowing hatchlings was a micro-payoff, tiny confirmation that he was influencing events in a way no human should be able to. Then the unexpected. The mother dragon nudged him lightly with her massive snout, almost urging him closer to the egg. Kalden froze, staring down at the cracked shell. A soft, warm light escaped the fissures, pulsing faster now, synchronized with the hatchling's glow. It was a pattern. A signal. And suddenly realization struck him. The egg wasn't just alive. It was part of the same network, the same bond connecting all the dragons in the barn. Fear and awe collided in his chest. If he could understand it, if he could protect it, maybe, just maybe, he could save them all. But outside, the storm raged and the other dragons were still circling, waiting, judging, dangerous and unpredictable. One wrong move and all their lives could end in an instant. Kalden swallowed hard, heart hammering. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I don't know what you want from me," he said, voice low but firm, "but I'll do whatever it takes. Just, trust me." The mother dragon's eyes narrowed, then softened slightly. She lowered her wings. The exiled dragons paused, hesitation written in every movement. And the hatchlings, their glow now steady and strong, pulsed in response. Kalden knew in that moment that nothing would ever be the same. The stakes had shifted. Survival was no longer enough. Understanding, communication, and courage would be his weapons. And somewhere beyond the storm, a greater mystery awaited, one that could change not only his life but the world of dragons forever. Then from outside, a rumble unlike the storm reached the barn. Not thunder. Something heavier. Something alive. Something ancient. The rumble shook the barn again, louder this time, echoing through every wooden beam. Kalden's heart thumped as he backed away, holding the hatchlings close. Their glow pulsed, faster now, as if warning him. Outside, through the rain-smeared door, he glimpsed it, a shadow enormous enough to blot out the storm, wings wider than any tree. This was no ordinary dragon. This was ancient, massive, and alive with power that made his stomach twist. He swallowed hard, steadying his shaking hands. The hatchlings whimpered, and the mother dragon growled low in her throat, wings partially unfurled. Kalden realized that if he hesitated, the barn could become a death trap. He had to act. Now. Lightning struck nearby, illuminating the barn's interior for a brief second. He could see the exiled dragons circling outside, tense, ready to defend their territory, or attack him. Every second he waited was dangerous. Kalden's mind raced. He had no weapons, no reinforcements. Only his courage, wits, and determination. He gritted his teeth. "I'm not leaving them," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "I won't let anything happen to you." The ancient dragon moved closer, the ground trembling with each step. Its eyes, glowing faint gold, scanned the barn. Kalden could feel its intelligence, the weight of centuries in its gaze. The hatchlings flinched, their glow dimming in fear. He knew instinctively, one wrong move and it could crush them, or him, without a second thought. Then he noticed something unexpected. The mother dragon nudged him gently with her snout, wings curling protectively around the hatchlings. The exiled dragons hesitated as if waiting for a signal. And the hatchlings themselves pulsed brighter, glowing in perfect rhythm with the mysterious egg in the corner. An idea sparked in Kalden's mind. A dangerous, desperate idea. He carefully set the hatchlings on the straw-covered floor, letting their glowing light illuminate the barn. Then he moved to the egg, placing it between himself and the approaching dragon. The glow from the egg intensified instantly, almost as if responding to him. The ancient dragon paused at the doorway, wings flaring slightly. It sniffed the air, tilting its massive head. Lightning flashed again, revealing the intricate patterns glowing across the hatchlings' bodies and the egg. Kalden realized the connection. The egg, the hatchlings, and the dragons outside were part of a single network. Somehow, his courage and care were influencing them. He took a deep breath and stepped forward slowly, hands open, voice firm but calm. "I'm not your enemy," he said, eyes locked on the massive creature. "I only want to protect them." The ancient dragon's gaze flickered between him and the hatchlings, then the egg. For a moment the storm seemed to pause. Even the wind and rain outside seemed quieter, as if holding its breath. Then the dragon let out a low, vibrating sound, a resonance that shook the barn but carried meaning. Calden felt it in his chest, as if understanding the words without hearing them. The hatchlings responded instantly, their glow synchronizing with the egg and the mother dragon's hum. The exiled dragons outside relaxed slightly, wings lowering. The ancient dragon's massive head dipped almost imperceptibly, and Calden realized the impossible. It recognized his bravery, his empathy, his willingness to risk everything for these creatures. But the danger was not gone. The storm outside had not relented. Water now poured under the barn doors, rising rapidly. One slip could send the hatchlings tumbling into the flood. Calden's arms ached from holding them before, and now he had to act again. He scanned the barn quickly. A loft above, stacked with crates and straw, could serve as a safe place temporarily. "Come on," he whispered urgently, scooping the hatchlings back into his arms. "We're moving, now." The mother dragon moved alongside him, her massive form brushing against the barn walls. The exiled dragons followed cautiously, keeping a protective perimeter. Calden ran, slipping in mud and straw, heart hammering, adrenaline pumping. The hatchlings clung to him, glowing brighter with every step. Halfway to the loft, a beam snapped under the storm's pressure, splintering across the floor. Calden dove to avoid it, barely protecting the hatchlings. The ancient dragon outside roared, a warning that shook the barn walls and rattled every bone in his body. But he didn't stop. One step after another, he pushed through the chaos, guided by courage and sheer willpower. Finally, he reached the loft and set the hatchlings down gently. They nestled into the straw, trembling but safe. He quickly stacked crates around them for protection. The mother dragon lowered her head, nudging the hatchlings gently. Their glow stabilized, synchronized with the egg, almost as if communicating relief. Calden slumped against a crate, chest heaving, soaked, exhausted. The barn was battered, the storm raging outside, the dragons circling protectively, but for now he had survived. The impossible odds had been faced and beaten, if only for this moment. Lightning flashed once more, illuminating the loft. Calden's gaze fell on the ancient dragon, standing at the barn entrance, wings folded but imposing. Its eyes locked on him again. Not a threat. Not yet. Recognition. Respect. Judgment. Calden swallowed, realizing that this was more than survival. This was trust. Hard-won, earned through courage, determination, and care. And then the unexpected happened. The egg pulsed brightly, brighter than before, and the hatchling's glow expanded, filling the loft with light. The ancient dragon's massive shadow stretched across the walls, and for a brief moment, it lowered its head, almost bowing. Calden felt a strange warmth, a connection he didn't understand, but that gave him hope. He glanced at the hatchlings. Safe. The mother dragon curled around them protectively. The exiled dragons hovered nearby, watching, waiting. Outside, the storm raged, but he knew he had changed something. Not just survived but made a mark. Yet deep down he knew this was not the end. The ancient dragon's gaze lingered, and the rumble from outside hinted at even greater forces at play. Something older. Something more dangerous. Something that would test him again. Calden breathed deeply, steadying his shaking hands. He had faced impossible odds. He had protected the vulnerable. And he had earned trust where no human should have been able to. But the adventure was far from over. The storm finally began to relent, leaving the barn dripping and battered, but calm for the first time in hours. Calden sank to the floor, his arms aching from holding the hatchlings and moving crates, his clothes soaked through and stiff with mud. The glowing egg rested safely beside the straw, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. The small dragons nestled close to him, trembling but alive, their glow steady now, almost peaceful. He let out a long breath and looked up. The mother dragon, enormous and majestic, had curled around the hatchlings, protecting them with her massive body. Her wings draped like a shield, and though her gaze was still alert, there was an unmistakable softness in her eyes. Calden's chest tightened. He realized something powerful. He hadn't just saved them. He had earned their trust. "Good," he whispered to himself. "You're safe now. For tonight at least." But even as he spoke, he felt the energy in the barn shifting. The egg's glow flickered in response to the hatchling's movements, a rhythm that seemed almost like communication. Calden's brow furrowed. He didn't understand the language, but he sensed a connection forming, a bond between human and dragons, fragile yet undeniable. For the first time he felt part of something larger than himself. He stood slowly, brushing mud from his coat. Outside, the exiled dragons hovered near the barn's edge, wings folded, eyes watchful but no longer threatening. The mother dragon gave a low hum, a soothing vibration that resonated through the barn. Calden realized it was an acknowledgement, a signal that he had done the right thing, that his courage had changed the outcome. He glanced at the hatchlings again. The smaller one blinked its glowing eyes at him, wings twitching experimentally. The other, still wrapped in his makeshift blanket, stretched its neck toward him as if recognizing him not just as a protector, but as someone it could rely on. Calden smiled despite exhaustion. That small gesture, the tiniest sign of trust, was more rewarding than any harvest, any day's work. The barn doors creaked as the mother dragon nudged them open slightly, peering into the storm-soaked fields. Lightning flashed one last time, revealing the distant shapes of the exiled dragons retreating toward the hills, wings beating against the clearing sky. Calden watched, chest tight with relief and awe. Somehow he had done it. Against impossible odds, he had protected lives far more fragile than his own, and he had formed a bond that seemed stronger than any human could have expected. Yet the egg still pulsed, brighter than before, casting dancing light across the barn. Calden felt it hum against his chest as if acknowledging his presence. He knelt beside it cautiously, brushing a muddy finger across its shell. The markings, intricate and glowing faintly, shifted subtly, almost like a response. He realized that this was no ordinary dragon egg. It was the key to something bigger, a mystery that would not stay hidden for long. The mother dragon turned her gaze toward him, nostrils flaring. She lowered her massive head, bringing it level with his eyes. Calden held his breath. Then, surprisingly, she nudged him gently, almost a bow of recognition. His heart leapt. She wasn't just accepting him, she was trusting him. A human had earned a dragon's loyalty, a feat thought impossible in legend. He sat back on his heels, letting exhaustion wash over him. But the glow of the hatchlings, the pulse of the egg, and the hum of the mother dragon reminded him that his journey was far from over. These were not ordinary creatures. Their survival depended on more than shelter and warmth. It depended on courage, intelligence, and empathy. And Calden now carried all three in abundance. A soft crackling sound came from the loft above. Calden's eyes snapped upward. The hatchlings stirred, wings twitching. The egg's light intensified. For a heartbeat, everything seemed to pulse in unison. The humans, the dragons, and the storm's aftermath. It was a moment of harmony, fragile yet undeniable. Calden smiled, feeling pride swell in his chest. He glanced at the barn doors again, now open to the damp field. The mother dragon lifted her wings, stretching fully, wingspan filling the doorway. The exiled dragons lingered at the edge of the clearing, watching, waiting, acknowledging him in their own way. Somehow, through courage and care, he had bridged two worlds that had never truly touched. And yet, deep in his gut, Calden knew this was only the beginning. The egg's glow continued to pulse insistently, sending ripples through the hatchling's light. Somewhere beyond the hills, something ancient stirred, older than the mother dragon, larger than any he had yet seen. Its presence was subtle but undeniable, a reminder that the world of dragons was bigger, more complex, and far more dangerous than anyone could imagine. Calden rose to his feet, brushing straw from his coat. He looked at the hatchlings, their wings fluttering experimentally, and the egg humming with strange energy. "We'll face it together," he said softly. "No matter what comes next." The mother dragon lowered her massive head again, touching his shoulder lightly. A signal. A promise. Calden swallowed, heart racing. This bond was real. It was powerful. And it had changed everything. As he turned toward the loft to make the hatchlings more comfortable, a shadow passed over the barn doors. Calden froze, heart hammering. It was enormous, larger than the mother dragon, moving silently, unseen until now. Its wings stretched beyond the clearing, and he felt its presence like a weight pressing on his chest. He realized with a start, the story was far from over. New challenges, greater threats, and even larger mysteries awaited. And somehow he would have to face them, not just for himself but for the dragons he had sworn to protect. Calden knelt beside the glowing hatchlings, holding them close. "Rest now," he whispered. "We've survived today. Tomorrow, we'll see what comes next." The egg pulsed brighter one final time, sending a soft wave of light across the barn. The mother dragon shifted protectively, wings curling around the hatchlings. Outside, the wind died down, leaving only a distant rustle across the storm-soaked fields. And in the distance, over the hills, the enormous shadow moved again, a silent promise of adventure, danger, and discovery yet to come.